Welcome everyone to our first virtual Fireside Chat Series Edition 1 showcasing Barbados. A very special welcome to each and every one of our panelists who are joining us today. We're looking forward to hearing from each of you during our discussion. My name is Kristen Moore and I'm the CEO of Destinations of Distinction, and I'm joined by my entire team today, but I'm going to do a special shout out to Crystal Roach, who's our sales and marketing strategist. Crystal, say hi.
Hi everyone.
She's going to be assisting me today with moderating our panel, and she's going to be championing our audience, you, by monitoring the Q&As and our trusted timekeeper. So all of our attendees, we welcome you to write your questions throughout this discussion. As we move through, there is a chat bot located down below on the toolbar. If your question happens to be directed to a particular panelist in our discussion, just put the @ symbol and their name before the question so we know who to direct it to when we open up that Q&A section. So during this discussion, we hope to dive into our panelists' personal and professional opinions on what the new travel era will look like and how this might have a lasting effect on how our industry thrives in the future. No one has a crystal ball, so we don't expect our panelists to predict how this will all eventually pan out, but we find that this conversation is still extremely impactful and relevant to the minds of the American traveler. Our travel industry is arguably being impacted the hardest thus far, but it is also the most resilient, and we are confident that by continuing to support each other, we will weather the storm and thrive as an industry once again. I'd like to take this opportunity to allow our panelists to introduce themselves to you with a quick round robin. Let's start with Patricia Das.
Okay, hi to everyone, and hello from Barbados. I think we should call this a beachside chat, Kristen.
That's right.
But yeah, I'm Patricia Afonso Das. I am the CEO Group GM at Ocean Hotels in Barbados. And I am also currently the president of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, who I know many of you have been interacting with over the last couple of weeks. So that's me in a nutshell.
Fabulous. And Petra.
Hi everyone, good afternoon from the beautiful island of Barbados. I am Petra Roach. I'm the head of global markets for Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. I am normally based in the USA with responsibility for all our global markets, but I just was very clever and timed it perfectly so that I was here on the island when the whole pandemic blew up and managed to stay. Amazing. Looking forward to a great chat.
Thanks, Petra. And Ruth Ann?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ruth Ann Chirero. I'm the Vice President of the Travel Group at QuestX Media, and I'm the Editorial Director of Luxury Travel Advisor and Travel Agent magazines and all their websites. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks, Ruth Ann. And Mr. Jorg?
Good afternoon, everybody from beautiful Barbados. My name is Jorg Roteberg. I'm the Group General Manager for Una Resorts and Residences, which represents St. Peter's Bay and Port Ferdinand, as well as Nikki Beach here in Barbados. And it's great to be here in Barbados. Unfortunately, rather lonely. I'm sitting in one of my homes, residences here, and I would like to have people around. And as before, somebody mentioned, the beaches are absolutely gorgeous. Nature's at its best, but we need some footprints. So it's great to have everybody around today.
Thank you, Jorg. And Julie? Oh, Julie, you're on mute. Wait, hold on.
Got it. Hi, my name is Julie Schottmeyer. I am the CEO and co-founder of Jet Set Getaways in Northern New Jersey.
Amazing. Thanks, Julie. And Josh?
Good afternoon, everybody. Josh Bush, CEO of Avenue 2 Travel, based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with roughly 75 travel advisors, primarily in the Northeast, but then also across the country. Kristen, thank you so much for putting this together for us today.
Amazing. Thanks, Josh. Lindsay?
Hey guys, I'm Lindsay Epperly. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and own Epperly Travel. We were a virtual company before that became the norm a couple of months ago. And while I do sit in an owner seat, I am on Wendy Perrin's WOW list for the Caribbean. So if I am selling, it is typically to places like Barbados.
Amazing. And Ro?
Hi everyone, my name is Ro Nakash. I manage Boca Express Travel, an American Express representative office here in beautiful Boca Raton. But Jorg, I've been to one of your properties and I wouldn't mind being in your place either right now. So
Listen, we just need the airplanes, and please feel free to come back immediately.
And last but not least, Miss Sally Jane.
Hi, I'm Sally Jane Smith from Travel Smiths. We're in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I'm the president, and I am also a frontline luxury travel advisor with 26 team members who are ready to get people out of this town.
That's great to hear. Okay, well, welcome again to all of our panelists. We're so excited to dive in, and without further ado, let's get the questions started. I think the first one, like I said, we're going to start with media. So for Ruth Ann, what topics or trends have been the most popular for your readers during a time where there is a lot of unknown?
Yes, thanks for the question. In the very beginning, it was just a little crazy with news being all over the place, the cruise lines stopping, hotels closing down. Then we actually got very little news for like a week or so. There was like silence basically. And what I found was the public relations executives are being super careful about trying not to promote, luxury travel is all wonderful things. And they were always asking, would it be appropriate for me to send you this? Would it be appropriate for me to send you that? Kind of got through that. We had a lot of great initiatives where the destinations and hotels did virtual, how to explore the destinations virtually. So we've got a lot of news about that. This past week, it's been great though. There's news of opening, right? And so we're seeing that across the USA, across Italy, the Caribbean to a certain degree. It's all over the place, and the questions kind of remain, well, it's open, but can we fly there? Can we go and be there without being quarantined? So we're just being super careful about how we're positioning the news. But it's a lot of good stuff. It's always something coming online every day. And we did do something a little bit different over the past few weeks. We posted twice a week a feel-good story, because there are a lot of suppliers doing really wonderful things to help their employees now or to help their community. So we were posting, synopses of those. And then the other story that we've been posting every week is what the hotels and destinations are doing to promote hygiene. Almost every hotel brand has come out with something to really show, what they're doing to take super care of travelers when they're staying with them. So.
I think we lost Kristen.
Can't hear.
Sorry. So do you feel like this will have a lasting effect on how travel trends will be written about in the future?
I do. I think things have become so tempered that in terms of the way people write about travel, there's going to be a new sense of care taken. I think we'll kind of see a lot of the, I call it, forgive me, PR fluff, but there is a lot of fluff that goes on, and a lot of this is the best, this is that. I think that what we'll see now is luxury destinations and hotels being being promoted as places people can go for wellness, to be with their families, to have quality time. I think that the losses that all of us have endured, some very, very terrible and personal, but really what we've just seen across the globe in terms of loss has really tempered people for a very long time. And so I think we'll see luxury promoted in a more tempered manner.
Yeah, agreed for sure. And then just to wrap it up, how has media coverage changed since the pandemic began? Do you feel like finding relevant coverage when news topics can seem very cyclical? Do you see that changing, or?
Not really. And again, what I was finding is that people were being super careful about sending us news, just so I'm talking about product news. Like, is this appropriate? We are full speed ahead and looking for news, because I knew our travel advisor audience still, even if things were so bad in March, you think of those few weeks when it was like, oh my God, I knew you guys really still needed to know what was happening. You weren't giving up on the world, and you needed to know there's a hotel opening in this place. There's, this is what's going on. So we were trying to always present it in a tempered manner, like, we know there are terrible things happening in the world, but here's just kind of what's happened today in terms of new products, et cetera. So we're going full speed ahead with news coverage in terms of what's happening, what do travel advisors need to know now, because their clients are so demanding. I think you're muted.
Again. So move over to the tourism side for a second, and Patricia will lead with you here. Tell us a little bit about what has been done. I know that you are leading the tourism task force there on the ground in Barbados. And so what has been done thus far to prepare for passenger safety once they touch down eventually on Barbados soil? And how would that filter through to the locals and the staff at the hotels?
Right. Well, actually, I'm chairing one of the subcommittees of the regional task force, which is looking at the issue of health and protocols and so on. And I mean, one of the things that we're seeking to do is obviously ensure that when our visitors come to us, and also our team members that work with us, that we're providing safe environments in which they can either enjoy the destination or we can provide service in that destination. So reviewing a lot of the best practice that's out there. I mean, you're almost feeling sometimes like you're in an information overload type situation. There's a ton of information out there, but I think it's sifting through that and trying to come up with sensible, logical, because, you know, protocols that take safety or put safety first, but also appreciate the unique environments in which many of us find ourselves. One of the things with the Caribbean and with Barbados in particular is that unlike many hotels in other destinations where open air, there, you know, we have a lot more space. The style of the properties are quite different. And so what would be applicable or necessary in a different type of establishment may not be as relevant here. And so trying to ensure that safety leads, but that the guests, when they come to us, are also having a really enjoyable experience, and one in which they feel that they are on holiday as opposed to in hospital. I think it's that fine line between safety and really great service that we're trying desperately to balance here. And you know, we're looking at it from a number of different angles. I think, you know, the thinking at the moment is that it'll be more of a phased approach, and all of the businesses that are going to be re-entering will need to go through assessments in terms of ensuring that the protocols are in place, that their staff have been trained. We're taking the opportunity while staff have been laid off to put in place mechanisms where we can kind of train large groups of people at the same time. We can sensitize people to the new environments that they will be working in, that we take the time to refresh the properties where possible. So there's a lot that we've been doing over this period where our guests haven't been there or our team members haven't been at work, but ultimately all to the benefit of the destination.
Yeah, and I know that currently right now you do have a 14-day mandatory quarantine for anyone that's coming into the destination, but that airlines will start to be traveling to Barbados next month. Do you have any line of sight into when that quarantine, that mandatory quarantine might be lifted, and when the hotels will start to open their doors and welcome tourists?
Right. Well, I mean, yes, there is a mandatory quarantine now, and the projected date, because while it's a projected date, it's not a specific date in terms of when the flights will restart. So far, the airport is open and is closed until the 30th of June, and we're doing everything we can to ensure that we can safely open after that. So, you know, with us, it's, you know, as our Prime Minister keeps saying, it's not a date-driven situation. It's a situation that's going to be driven by ensuring that once we open, that we're in a position to consistently deliver the product that we've promised, and that we can do so in a safe and organized manner.
Great, great. And Petra, you know, considering that the tri-state area of the U.S. has historically been the leading feeder market for Barbados, and is now the leading region for infection rate, although that's going down, thankfully. Are locals on the ground hesitant on the reopening of those borders to the travelers?
Kristen, I think you started by saying that it's going down, so it's going in the right direction now, for which we are very appreciative. I think that when I looked at the most recent stats about the economic impact of this virus, it says that it's going to be around $2.7 trillion, which, I mean, my brain can't even fathom it. So I think you take that and you put it into a small island scenario. We are 166 square miles, you know, 43% of our foreign exchange and GDP and employment actually comes from tourism, both direct and indirect. So it's a massive, massive impact on the economy. But, you know, the US market has grown massively in the last 5 years. The Northeast represents 65%. So it is really, really an important region for us. What we're doing at the minute in terms of strategizing for the re-entry is speaking with our airline partners in order to ensure that the proper protocols are followed. We are working with IATA as well so that we can see whether or not across the region, not just for Barbados, we can look at rapid testing opportunities before people embark. Patricia said it quite eloquently. Our Prime Minister is always like, you know, it's not about a date, it's about making sure that the stats are sending the right message, because our priority remains the safety of the Barbadian people first and foremost, and then obviously the safety of our visitors. The worst thing that we could have at the minute is a reimportation of this virus after it's been culled. So I think, you know, the proper protocols are being put into place in terms of arrival at the airport, making sure that people are tested, making sure that there is social distancing when they go to the immigration booths, making sure that there are sanitizers, outlets everywhere around the airport. And again, those protocols don't just stop at the airport. They are also being drilled down into the other frontline workers, like the taxi drivers, like the hotels, etc. So the interesting thing for us is, what will that traditional Caribbean warmth and hospitality look like when you extricate the human element, which is something that we are very known for? Barbados has a 42% repeat clientele. And the reason people say that they come back again and again is because of the warmth and that special welcome that they get from the Barbadian people. So we're trying to come up with ways in which we can show that appreciation and make people know that they're welcome and not impinge on their experience with a social distancing approach. So on the other hand, what I would say is that, you know, we are also working so closely together in order to make sure that the tourism experience that is post-COVID will be one where we really have connectivity across the island in terms of, you know, the farmers working with the hotels, in terms of the local artisans, you know, creating beautiful souvenirs rather than having souvenirs from China, in terms of looking at opportunities for renewable energy and how we can be more green in the way that we do things, in terms of retraining our local teams and getting them passionate about this thing that we call tourism, because it is just so, so important, not only to the economic lifeline of Barbados, but also to our sense of well-being and entrepreneurship and all those things. So it's a learning curve, but we are ensuring that, you know, we take the good out of a terrible situation.
Absolutely. And a lot of those things that you mentioned too was leading me into the next question on, you know, how we can expect to see Barbados post-COVID. And I mean, you really did answer a lot of how you're just going to be pivoting or shifting the experience. And I think Barbados does lend itself to that well-being. So do you see that aspect carrying through not only post-COVID, but in the future? Is that being a lasting tourism driver to the destination?
You know, I think there's going to be a paradigm shift in terms of what is important for the customer. You know, the sanitation, the safety and security, those are going to take on really, really monumental importance in terms of that customer choice. It is very important as well that we move the overall experience from just being a sun, sand and sea experience, which Barbados has never been. You know, we've got a very well-structured infrastructure. We've got the reputation of being a safe and secure destination, so people traditionally get outside of the hotel. But I think that what we want to ensure is that we have every customer leaving here feeling as though, you know, they have benefited not just by getting a suntan, but they benefited by learning something or going away with something new. So one of the ideas is that all of the hotels will adopt a local project. There will be a volunteerism element of it. One of the ideas is that, again, rather than you just sitting down in the restaurant and eating, that you will, again, start doing your, culinary classes and mixology classes. And the idea is that we will go hyper local. That's my new buzzword, where, rather than looking for importation of the food products, that we are getting the local farmers to become engaged in that whole process. And who knows, there might be a kitchen garden at the hotel as well, where you can go and learn about your herbs and spices as well. It has to become a passion. It has to be more than just fly and flop. That has to be the way that we move forward.
But Kirsten, if I can just add one quick thing there, I think, Ruth Ann earlier when she was speaking used the words care taken, and that's very much something that I think moving forward, there's been so much loss, as she said, and so many horrible things that have been front and center, that I think when we're looking at the protocols and we're looking at how do we move this forward, it has to be with a view to ensuring that people feel cared for, whether those are our team members, so that we're doing all that we can to make them feel comfortable in the spaces in which they're working, because they're scared too, and they would have been out of work for a long period of time, or whether it's our guests, so that they recognize, as Petra said, that a destination that is known for its warmth and hospitality is still sending or being able to deliver that experience, just in a different way. So I don't think we're trying to sterilize the experience. I think we're simply trying to deliver it in a way that exercises or exemplifies care, but care of those things that in today's environment and at this particular point in time are important to people. And that will continue to change as things improve. But for right now, it's all about reassuring people and letting them know that we see them, we care for them, and we're doing everything we can to keep them safe.
Great. And so keeping on that sort of hotel experience side, let's turn it over to Jorg. Tell us a little bit about, how you see that future hotel or villa guest stay or experience looking like with all of your updated and leveling up of the protocols that you will be doing for them.
Well, first of all, I love the sentence that Patricia used. She said, we don't want our guests to feel like they're going to a hospital or having hospital experience. And one thing Barbados did extremely well is manage the COVID-19 outbreak. We have currently only 9 active cases on the island, which are all in isolation. So, like other destinations, we're starting to go to a 0 cases situation, which of course makes a lot of things a lot easier. There's a question earlier, will people have to wear a mask when they come on the island? Will people have to go into quarantines? As of now, yes, quarantine is mandatory, as we'll explain, until the 30th of June, and we shall see what happens then. As of masks, they are, if you go into a shop or if you go into a store, they are mandatory as we speak. That might also change. But as you just said, a very good point, what is going to happen on the ground and in the hotels? Well, we're very lucky that we have always had in residences check-in, so we never had that basically reception feeling. So it was always done very individually, as well as the transfer from the airport was done in individual limousine. So we never had that accumulation of people at one spot. We have space. We're a villa product. We started 2,600 square foot, go all the way up to 8,000. So we're one of the lucky ones that maybe coming out of this have a product that will be in demand due to the fact that I don't like the word social distancing. I prefer physical distancing, and please not more than 6 feet. But it is something that we need to be very aware of, how we're going to manage the flow of the people and the guests, because they need to feel looked after, loved, embraced from a more virtual point of view. And I think what we have done so far, of course, there's a whole new cleaning protocol. When you come into a hotel, we have minimum 3-bedroom villas. That is a complete different now grade of cleaning. So will we have to interval, so take the villa 1 day out of operation between guests to do a thorough cleaning, which right now we're actually anticipating. It is all about the training of the team. The team needs to understand now what is priority when you go into it. Will room service be basically a drop-off in front of the entrance door? will the setup be there? I do not believe that buffets will stay there if we continue like this. I think that will be a thing of the past. But it definitely is a whole new approach. What I really don't want to see or happen, in all fairness, is people being afraid to have to come and wear helmets or be intimidated during their vacation. It has to be a memorable experience. And Barbados always had one of the highest culinary offerings in the Caribbean, if not the world. And that has to become back part of our offering and part of our amazing product. And so, yes, we need to come back to a certain degree of normality, but we also have to be realists and therefore make sure that we deal with the situation at hand, the hygiene, the sanitation, the whole way we present our product and how we respectfully greet each other, the distance between us, the no longer shaking hands and embracing well-known friends of the family, which are repeat guests. And that will definitely be a challenge, but the protocol on the ground is developing and in place already.
That's amazing. And so taking that, obviously, these are so many positive and proactive measures that Barbados and our hoteliers are taking. Let's move it over to our advisors for a second. And I know that our business here in the US is evolving. And so, let's start with Josh. How, from a, supplier relationship standpoint, which is so important to us in our business, but from a partnership level, have your qualifying standards changed when you're working with new or existing suppliers? And if so, how?
I don't know that our standards have necessarily changed. I think that they're still, pretty high. But, we also, from this question in particular, we need to look at the other half of the whole COVID problem and COVID issue, which is that this is just as much as it is a health crisis, it is a financial crisis. And so trust is going to really come into play with our suppliers when we're looking at, are they still going to be in business? One of the things that I think that many of our clients are very concerned about are flexible terms and conditions. Will that hotel, will that cruise line, will that airline still be in business when I want to be there? So those DMC partners, those hotel partners that can provide us flexible terms to be able to make changes, because I think in many cases it's still too soon to tell for very close in bookings. If we're looking at 21 and on beyond, then people have a little bit more confidence going forward. But in order to start to capture this market that has that pent-up demand that wants to get out today, trust really comes into play. And so those hotels that have been on time with commissions, those hotels that are flexible with terms, those hotels that have been able to process refunds or other suppliers that have processed refunds in a fair and equitable manner, that's really where the trust comes into play. And we have even actually many tour operators and DMCs that are sharing financials with us that we can then pass on to our clients. That's a big trust issue and a big trust factor that is really influencing decisions today for our clients and for our advisors.
Amazing. Yeah. And so, Ro, in terms of your agency engagement with your supplier partners, and obviously we've seen this shift change, we're not able to come physically into the offices right now and talk to you guys. How do you see that working in the future once we are able to sort of coexist again in person? Will your protocols change in terms of your in-house appointments? Are you going to be more geared towards these Zoom meetings, for instance? How do you see that going forward?
So it's funny that you asked, because I actually just had a supplier email me for an appointment for September already. So honestly, I told her that we're not ready. And being a brick and mortar agency, one of our advantages is that we do welcome our suppliers. We love our sales reps. It's, I think, one of the reasons that the agents love coming in. The interaction, meeting the face behind the phone. And I think it's the relationship building. It's been like that for a while. What we've done is, right now, as everybody else has done, is we've done Zoom meetings. So every morning we have a 10 o'clock interaction Zoom meeting with the entire staff. So what we've done is we've now had our sales reps, whether it's, Ritz-Carltons or hoteliers, destinations, have joined us at 10:30. and let us know what their updates are, how they're doing, what's open, when they're going to be open. And I think it's helped for the agents to be able to better assist their clients when they are calling and saying, I want to go away this weekend. I want to drive within, a certain distance. So we know we're still engaged and still on top of what's happening in the industry. Moving forward, we are, again, because we do love meeting and having our sales reps in the office, we're probably not going to have anybody in moving forward, probably not until the beginning of next year. Once, hopefully we'll see what's happening. And at that point, it's always been by appointments, but it's going to be by appointments and more spaced out. Whereas I would give everybody maybe a half hour, an hour in between. It might be a little bit longer so we can cleanse and clean and so forth. The agents also have to be comfortable with it. So we do, again, value our partnerships with all our hoteliers, all our tour operators, and we do look forward to seeing them again. And we will welcome them again, but probably not until next year.
Right. And so, Sally, I'd like to direct the next one to you because I know that you have expressed how important it is to get out there to these destinations and show support once the borders open. How important will fam trips be? And for those of you that aren't in the industry and you might just be travelers, fam trips are familiarization trips where your trusted advisors will go to a destination and experience it and give it the green light for you. And so, Sally, for you and your team, how important will those experiences be moving forward once the borders start to open?
Now more than ever, it is going to be so important because I can't wait for the first flight to allow us to go down, because whichever one's going to open up, and I hope it would be Barbados immediately, I'd be on that flight. I just know that when we are doing this fam, a familiarization trip, our team members won't be, I don't think that they feel comfortable about rooming together. We would have to have single rooms. But I know that my team, they're gnawing at the bit. They want to get out, because if we don't show the American public that we're ready to go, then they won't be ready to go. And I feel that, I know that in the United States, we're starting to see some movement. It was thrilling to see that Disney actually was opening up because the American public trusts them. If they feel that Disney's good, then I feel that we can be able to open up our borders to the Caribbean.
Great, great. And
Kristen, could I just add one point to that real quick, is that in this post-COVID world, travel is going to be different. And not only do we need to wave the banner and the flag that we're on the front line saying that it's okay to travel, but we need to be able to experience that firsthand so that we can describe that to our clients. What is it like to check into a hotel where somebody is wiping the door behind you and cleaning off the desk, and that you're potentially you're ordering from a QR code off of an app? I mean, there's all these new changes that are coming into place that many suppliers are doing differently that we can only speak to firsthand. And that's just so powerful. And again, going back to the word that you used before, trust, and conveying that trust to our clients that we've been through it.
And just on that, I agree with Josh and Sally, as I think to get our clients excited and motivated, they need to see us there. They need to see us showing them what's happening, what's going on, the new way of travel, and that we're not afraid. And here you are, everyone is welcoming you. So FAMS, to your question, is, I think, a priority.
Mm-hmm. Amazing, amazing. And so, Julie, I'd like to ask you, in terms of just, any positive pivots that you guys have made as an agency, how you're connecting with your clients and sharing this information with them on potential trips. What are some of the things that you and your team have been working on?
So some things that my team and I have been working on and pivoting during this pandemic, and I just have to note that we really took time to make a pivot, because in the tri-state area in particular, everyone's very sensitive. There's been a lot of anxiety. So we had to wait until the right moment to make that pivot. We began the pivot with destinations that are within a 4-hour driving distance and creating itineraries for people to get excited, because things are really starting to open up destinations around the tri-state area in June, and people now are ready to talk about this and hear about it. So we've creatively put together some itineraries for them that of course we can customize, but just to plant the seed and make them excited about getting out of their homes and taking a vacation. Most recently, summer camps have been canceled the last few days. So we're going to start putting out and publishing ideas for families. This weekend in particular, we did book our first destination that is not in driving distance, which would take a layover, but they're going to Montana to a ranch. So they feel comfortable right now with getting on a plane because especially like after 9/11, our safety standards change. Now, after the COVID crisis, our sanitary safety is changing on the planes. So they do feel comfortable about putting on that mask and getting on the plane and going somewhere where they are still remote. So we are seeing that pivot within the last week, but first we really did concentrate on the driving itineraries. And with that, we're putting them out through social media. That's been huge, as well as following up with a newsletter, which people can DM us after we post the idea on Instagram. And we have received a few hundred inquiries of being on our email newsletter. So it's really just staying in contact and emphasizing that if you're ready to travel, we're ready to help you. If you're not ready to travel, we understand that and we're not going to push that on you.
That's amazing. Any of our other advisors, have you guys done something similar maybe to Julie or something different?
What we've done, yes. You're asking the question, right, Kristen? I'm sorry. So what we've done is we've done like happy hours with clients where it's more destination geared, get them excited. So it's actually it's today at 4:30, and today is Iceland along with Barbados this afternoon. But the clients are finding it. They're emailing us to let us know how wonderful that is. It is not sales driven. It is just to keep in touch and get them motivated and let them know that we're still here. And this is what we do, and get them excited to maybe think about a future. I have a client that, didn't think about the Galapagos, and, after our Galapagos happy hour, she emailed me immediately about her kids and so forth. So I think staying engaged with a client, with your clients is very important, regardless whether it's, a house in Florida or a new destinations for them.
We actually are having a Caribbean night, and the first 12 registered received a rum punch homemade by my hubby of fresh mango and pineapple and some jerk sauce as a little bucket. And we went to 12 different homes this morning with my little mask on, the little video. So, and I already see that on Facebook, it's popping and people want to register more, which is great. So that's what we want to see. We want people to be engaged. We want them to be excited, because the people that, like you said, who are unsure or are compromised, they should stay home. But the people that are healthy and ready to go, let's get this ball moving, because people do want to travel.
Amazing. And so, Lindsay, actually, I know that you wrote an article similar to this question, so I would love to lead with you on here. And do you see a resurgence of the travel advisors, perhaps among those that may have booked online previously without the guidance of an advisor? So do you see that happening now as we move into the recovery stage?
Oh, I absolutely see that happening. And I think that we can all say we watched quite a few horror stories unfold and a few negative reviews of big box stores and OTAs. I actually know one of the advisors on my team saved a client from the borders of Egypt closing, and that was a client that had booked her flights through Expedia when Expedia wasn't answering. So yes, people got burned so much during this. And I think we're going to see that massive shift in demand for the services of a professional. But what I think is so fascinating is that no one's really talking about the supply part of that equation, right? So I think there's a huge opportunity when it comes to the choices of travel advisors for consumers. I think anyone who was an advisor that was not previously taking this profession seriously, maybe they're in it just for the perks, they realize pretty quickly that it's not all fun and games, and they are not the ones that are making it through the storm. So what that means is really the true professionals are going to be left standing. And similarly too, travel agencies themselves are being forced to adapt. And for those that aren't, or even worse, those that already had questionable business practices to begin with, they're going to have a close sign on their door. And as sad as that sounds on the surface, I really think it's one of the better things that could be happening for our industry. Clients that have never used an advisor before, for example, or even people that have used advisors and got like burned from them in the past for people that didn't know what they were doing. I think there's a new level of confidence that they can find in choosing an advisor on the other side of this. You know, they're going to really be working with someone who stood the test of time, that's really adding value, and that's something they can take confidence in. So I would recommend actually clients even go ahead and start seeking out their preferred advisors, start asking questions about what meets their needs. And for advisors too, you know, as we're all thinking through our business models, it's a time to sit back and think about, what problem am I solving for my future clients? Because as Julie mentioned, we are seeing these requests coming in, and I think people are ready to travel again.
That's amazing. And yeah, I mean, we're seeing that on our end too. I mean, just personal, you know, friends and family are saying, hey, you know what, I'm really thinking that a travel advisor is the way to go in the future for not only just big itinerary trips, right? But it could be any trip, because they have that security and that confidence with you guys as their trusted travel professional. So that's amazing news. And so really, we only have a couple more minutes before we're going to turn it over to Q&A, but does any of our panel members have any last minute thoughts or comments that you want to shoot out to the universe before we open it up to our amazing attendees?
I think Patricia has something, but we can't hear her.
I can't hear you, Patricia. It's weird because you're unmuted. Hold on. Try it now. Say.
No, we can't hear you.
What's Patricia's audio? Oh, I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry.
Kristen, can you hear me?
I can hear you, York.
Well, the interesting that people are talking about things changing from a supply, and of course in the travel industry. But one thing that will change in the luxury hotel industry, as I think so, is that we will start needing to be adapting. You know, the menu, the digital menu, the no longer somebody carrying your luggage, the fact that now certain things, certain protocols that have been seen as a luxury protocol might have to change, and you have no choice. You know,
Jorg, I have a question about that. You just actually hit the nail on the spot. We were actually discussing this, the no taking luggage. We deal with luxury clients. They are not going to drag their luggage to their rooms. How are you, in your hotels are luxury, how are you going to handle that? I really would like to know from a hotelier point of view and how that's going to be handled.
We will take the luggage off our arriving guests. We take it automatically out of the car. Okay, hand luggage as requested if they want to part, and we do base disinfect it. So all of our employees have gloves on and have the disinfectant bottles. And we start with the handle, and then again, this is the problem where we're talking about. If you have some very, very expensive leather, handbags or bags, how much do you want to have a disinfectant spray going on top of it? And that's the choice, again, of the guest. The luxury is a question of having choice. And so, of course, all the luggage, everything that's in the hold will be disinfected by our staff upon arriving at the property, okay? And then taken to the residence and put inside the residence. But we have butler services where people unpack luggage, where we go and offer a service where would you like us to unpack your luggage and for you, or pack your luggage. Now that is now something that we have to look at twice. Is that something that the guest will be seeing as something positive, or a little bit, as something intimidating with this new situation? And that's very important. And also a lot of luxury guests would not really like to have a code, a QPR code put in front of them, or like a wipeable plastic menu that you can basically take away afterwards and wipe off. They would like to have a proper leather folder with gilded paper and heavy print and beautiful writing. But at this point, at some instances, especially in food and beverage, we have no choice. We have to follow protocols, and therefore that will need an adaptation not only from the hotel, but also from the guest.
Yeah, so are you hearing me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was saying, we have a saying in Barbados that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, or you should never waste a good crisis. And some of what Jorg is saying is absolutely correct. And I want to come back to this issue of a phased approach, which is the way we're looking at it in Barbados. So while some of the things that we're putting in place as we reopen may seem different or a bit, a bit restrictive. The idea is that as we progress, we see which of the things that are working, which of the things we can pull back on, which of the things that still need to be in place for a little bit longer. And I think it's going to be a balancing act for a while, but the two words that I keep coming back to all of the time are, are trust and respect. I think earlier on, Kirsten asked a question about the perception of people welcoming guests from places that have such high incidence of coronavirus. And I think that is something that we're going to have to be sensitive to. The fact that, we're watching the same TV shows that you guys are and seeing the same news you guys are. And so I think in terms of when you're talking with your clients and sensitizing them, just as you would to any destination about whether they're, particular norms or so on, I think one of the big things is to be respectful of whatever the particular protocols are that are in place in that destination. Because if they're there, they're there because after all of the consideration and thought, we really do believe that at this particular point in time is what is best for your guests and for our staff. And being respectful of that as opposed to resisting of it is something that I think is going to make for a much better experience moving forward. Even I'm thinking with a lot of agents, a lot of your luxury clients, they want that assurance. I'm sure that from a reservations point of view, there's none of our reservation staff that wouldn't be happy to come on a call with you, to speak personally to your guests, to let them know firsthand what it is we're doing. Sometimes it helps to hear from the person who's going to be delivering that service. And I think that over the next couple of months, building that level of trust is going to be so important. You with your clients, us with you, and the visitor with ourselves.
That's great. Yeah. So we are just about past 2:45 now, and I just wanted to thank the panelists thus far for all of your input. This has really been amazing, and we have some really great questions from our attendees for you guys. So we're going to open that up. I'm going to let Crystal take the floor with our Q&A.
Kristen, do you mind if I just add one more thing that popped in my mind while we were discussing protocols and arrival procedures? I think something that the audience should know that's very important, that a lot of the destinations, including Barbados, which I personally have experienced, have VIP services at the airport. And this is something that if we haven't strongly recommended in the past, it's something to really start thinking about recommending as soon as we're talking about the destination and the arrival experience and what to anticipate and how it's worth the investment in that VIP service at destinations like Barbados, to have someone greet you at the plane and whisk you right through customs so you're not standing in line with a few hundred people, and you can go right to the car, right to your resort. So I think we're going to see a rise in the sales in VIP arrival and departure services at the airports.
That's a great point, Julie. That's a great point. And yes, that definitely will be a beneficial thing. And our partners in Barbados do offer that, as you know, and it is a great value-added service for sure. So, Chris, I'm going to leave it over to you now. Are there any questions for any of our panelists?
Absolutely. So I'll start with you, Patricia. If you could just reiterate whether guests, once the airport does open up again, will they be made to quarantine for 14 days? And what would that quarantine look like once the airport has opened back up? Oh, we've lost your audio again.
Yeah, is that better?
Right,
yeah. My understanding is that, the whole idea of being open for business is to ensure that guests can come and enjoy the facilities that are available to them. And so the idea is that when we do reopen, there should not be a mandatory quarantine type arrangement. That's the plan, or where we're working towards, and that's the reason for ensuring that the accommodation facilities have protocols in place that safeguard the guests and the staff. So there will be limited, when the thinking is, as we reopen, it may not be a situation where all of the types of facilities, attractions, and activities may open at the same time or immediately as we open. So those things will be opened as they are passing their inspections and are able to show that they can safely conduct their activities or the services that they offer. But the intent would be that once we open, that guests can come to the country, go to their hotels and access any of the approved or licensed or inspected facilities that are available outside of the hotel.
Understood. Thank you. And are the marinas currently open, or is that going in line with the airports as well? For you again, Patricia.
Oh, well, I'm not sure about marinas. That's probably a good question for Jorg. He has boats parked outside his rooms. But I think all ports of entry currently are restricted. But again, the idea would be once we're open for business, and when we say open for business from a tourism point of view, and Petra, maybe you have more insight to this than I do, is that, you know, we wouldn't want a situation where we're open and people have to be in mandatory quarantine, because that really then kind of is at odds with what we're attempting to do. But from a marina perspective, I don't know if there's anything specific to that.
Just following on from what Patricia's saying, there will be a period when we are open and the quarantine may be in place, but we're also looking at the minute to not just look at the traditional visitor to the island. There are also loads of opportunities where we've got people who are now working from home who are saying, can I come and hunker down in Barbados for 3 or 4 months until I go back to work in October? So that's a real niche that we can be, that we will be looking to further investigate. Also, a lot of the snowbirds who would traditionally go into Florida, who maybe are not that happy at the minute with the protocols that are established there, those are also another option that we can say our doors are open to. But at the minute, all ports of entry are closed until June the 30th.
Okay. And Petra, just staying with you, when can we expect to see some flights coming back in to the island?
Well, as I said, June 30th is when we're currently closed until. At this minute, we have the expectation that American will restart on July the 7th with a daily service out of Miami. The Charlotte service we expect to restart in October. And obviously, again, this is a phased re-entry, so we're going to look at what the demand is and then build up the capacity in line with the demand. In terms of the protocols on the American Airlines aircraft, they're actually taking out the middle seat. So rather than 172 seats being available for sale, they're actually, I think they've taken 2 out of first class, so it's now 14 rather than 16, and then 20 out of the back, so it's now 136 seats at the back rather than 156. And with JetBlue, we're looking to start a little bit slower because obviously that's in New York, which is where the hotbed is. And we're looking at a re-entry with 1 flight per week. And that's again from the start of July. And again, this thing is so fluid. It is keeping our ears to the ground. It's making sure that we constantly get the feedback from you, the travel advisors, in terms of what your customers are saying, in terms of, you know, the spike in the demand, etc. Because it is going to be a really sensitive balancing act, because the airlines can't fly unprofitable routes for an extended period. So we've got to make sure that we're extremely careful about really measuring that capacity issue with the demand curve.
Okay. And I think we just got a question from Jackie to you, since you were speaking. When the borders are open, do you think the quarantine will be shifted to more of a self-isolation in the property or villa or their home, as opposed to the government facility that it currently was when the borders were open?
Again, the situation is so fluid at the minute, and we are working very closely with our health authorities. Those are the most important people in the country at the minute. They obviously have a really good understanding through WHO and PAHO about the direction that the pandemic is going. I think that we have to err on the side of caution. It's always who, you know, the one who gets out the gates and lasts the longest. That's our priority. So I can't answer that at the minute, but I would say that if the science tells us that the quarantine should still be instituted, they will still be instituted. But we are looking at this every hour and second and minute of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jorg, just going on to you, we did have a question about, will guests ever be made to wear masks while they are on the property?
I think that is an excellent question. And I refer a little bit back to Petra. We will need to adhere to the guidance of the health authorities. You know, this is a very difficult, the masks are there to keep other people safe. And if everybody wears a mask, that makes you safe as well. Therefore, it is, you know, what happens in July, if we at a stage where we say we don't need masks when we go outside, but only when we're in close confinement, let's say we go into a restaurant or we go basically into a bar or into somewhere else, maybe that will be then a mandatory item. But I think it's important that we have also looking what other destinations are doing. Iceland is opening up, Europe is opening up. And I think we will learn a lot in the coming weeks of how they handle those situations. But at the moment, we are still waiting for the protocol as to when we will open airlift back into the destination with regards to the masks.
Okay, thank you. And we did also have a question for you about how you think pricing will compare after COVID when the borders do open back up.
That is an excellent question, because it's not only a question we have to ask ourselves as hoteliers who want to obviously re-encourage guests to come back, but also airlines taking seats out of their equipment, their airplanes. How is that going to affect pricing? You know, you have less seats. Are you going to basically keep the price up? There will be two things. We'll be very, very flexible. Number one, with our cancellation periods, especially going into the high season, we'll be extremely generous in terms of when you can cancel. We're looking at a 7-day cancellation period. We also basically are not going to touch our prices, and we have a lot of specials that we continue in the market and which will be happening. So there will be no basically real shift in terms of radical discounting, but there will definitely be also no shift going upwards. We want to maintain good levels, be very competitive, but also respect the quality that we're presenting.
I think that's a really good point, Jorg. And I think, again, a good understanding of our region and our destination is really important. I mean, when as Petra said, 43% of our GDP, direct and indirect, comes from tourism. And if you consider the impact that has had on the destination, and many of our businesses here are small independent businesses, they're not large chain hotels. And the cost of getting of meeting or putting in place all of the things that will be required to meet the new health and safety standards and they're going to be critical to your being able to open, they're not, it's not an inexpensive or trifling amount of money. And I think we all have to recognize that, you know, at the end of the day, again, and this is something that will probably go in stages, you know, in order to meet the level of safety, cutting corners and cutting costs and putting a business in a position where it can't afford to do the things it needs to do is short-lived gain. So I think that the idea, I'm sure that the majority of our hoteliers are holding prices, not price gouging, not looking for an opportunity to kind of take advantage, but at the same time recognizing that we all want to be in this for the long haul, and we need to ensure that we're being sensible about how we do that. So I think that's the best I can give you. I haven't seen or heard of any situations where prices are just going to go through the roof. I think the majority feeling is that we'll continue to operate and offer the prices that we've always offered and try to match that with the service that we've always delivered.
Absolutely. And either to you, Patricia, about Ocean Hotels, or you, Jorg, with Una, what is your current protocol if someone does become ill on site?
Well, we're closed at the moment, but I mean, the part of the national protocols prior to closing, when we were in a live COVID situation, is basically that the health authorities are called, and once the person is confirmed, they're tested, and once they're confirmed, they're taken to a facility. Part of the new protocols that are going to be put in place is the properties will have to have specific rooms designated so that if someone is suspected or has symptoms, that they can be put in, you know, that there's a place for them to go, and there's strict guidelines as to how they're managed while we're waiting for that process where they may need to be removed from the facility. But all of those are part of the accommodation protocols that are currently being put in place.
And I just want to follow on this point, because it's a really, really important point, and I think it's one of Barbados's unique selling propositions as well. Our healthcare system already has been exceptional. So you add on top of that the pandemic. We actually had a new facility built, which is in St. Lucie, called Harrison Point, and that actually has capacity for 200 beds. So, you know, a lot of care and attention has been put into the response to the pandemic. So you can rest assured that your customers will be definitely taken care of. And on top of that, we've got an excellent core of doctors and nurses who, you know, their priority is making sure that your customers are also taken care of.
Fantastic. And we're just gonna cover one more question. And it's, when hotels reopen, will there be occupancy caps on the total number of guests?
That's an interesting question. I think that's all pertaining to what property you would have. If you have a property that is a more volume product, you might want to look at spacing out. It's a difficult economical as well as, of course, health and safety decision. We would not have that problem. We are so spread out and so wide already in our whole situation that we would not have that issue. But it's a little bit like the airline situation. How do you make sure that you don't have people standing on each other's toes? And that each property needs to assess that differently.
Okay, great. So that is pretty much the hour mark completed. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us today, and especially for our panelists. We'll give them a little round of applause. You guys were all absolutely fantastic. It was very informative, and we absolutely loved having you guys. We know that your time is valuable, and we definitely really appreciate it. And for all of the advisors watching, we have recorded this, so we will make it a shareable link for you to send out to everyone. And we'll also send you up a follow-up email. We did have a lot of people registered, but we know some people couldn't make it. So feel free to share it with them as well. And everyone, stay safe, stay positive. You know, we're in this together, and we can't wait to get back to the destination, to Barbados. Of course, it's my favorite place in the world. So thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you,
Stay
Kristen,
safe.
for hosting this. Thanks, Kristen.
It's really great to see everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care, everybody.
Bye.